What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to an episode of Only Football. Back here in the studio, it is I, Kyle Kitzman, and I do not have Rick with me today, but Rick will be with us at some point during this week. And shout out to Rick, by the way. He's a really important part of the show. Always disappointed when he can't go, but we make a good team and we got each other's back. So, we're going to talk a little bit about Brock Purdy. We're going to talk a little bit about potential first round trades that are going to happen. And I also wanted to talk about the Packers head coach, LaFleur, some interesting comments that he had about the Packers. So obviously, me and Rick, about a week ago, got into a conversation about the weapons and how they didn't give Aaron Rodgers weapons. And I made the point that if you want to be the highest paid quarterback, then you have to understand that there's going to be limits on who you're allowed to bring in. So, I mean, look at this. They paid DeAndre Hopkins. Kyler Murray was on his rookie contract. They paid Kyler Murray, and now DeAndre Hopkins is out the door. This is just the way it works. And plus, receivers are coming out of college more pro ready than they ever have been before. So why spend so much money when you can get a pretty polished SEC wide receiver? And every year it seems like they're just getting better and better. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. You saw last year was the first time two rookies from the same college had 1,000 yards with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson from Ohio State. So anyway, the Packers, Matt LaFleur said they would like to add wide receivers to the receiver room. Some veteran leadership would be nice. So when I think about veteran leadership, immediately I think about Odell Beckham Jr. Odell hasn't necessarily been the epitome of a leader, but he has been in the league long enough where it's probably about time that he takes that turn and starts jumping into shut up Siri and takes that new role. And we're going to see the same thing, I think, from Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's going to have to take a new role. He's going to get an opportunity to be a starting quarterback again. I think he deserves it, to be quite honest. He went to a Browns team that was completely dismantled, and he helped build that team, get them back into the playoffs. Obviously, there's a lot of talent on that team, but I mean, the quarterback's the most important position. There's a lot of talent on the Broncos last year, and you saw what happened. So I don't really think that Baker Mayfield was just a product of being on a good team. So I think that he got shoved out the door for a guy that, we could spend the whole episode talking about Deshaun Watson, but we won't. But we are going to interview somebody that I met, this diehard Cleveland Browns fan, on our episodic series, Interview 32. So definitely stay tuned for that, because I really I talked to him quite a bit this weekend about what his feelings were about the Deshaun Watson thing. Obviously, we got to, kind of, when you talk off air, you can just ask more blunt questions. So, yeah, it was really cool. I'm excited to share that with you guys. But look, this is the thing. Is if the Packers do make a move for Odell Beckham Jr., what do you think is going to be the feeling around Aaron Rodgers? I think there's going to be a lot of resentment, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be banging on the table saying, "Why didn't you do this while Aaron Rodgers was a Packer? Why would you do this now?" And it's like, Aaron Rodgers, you have to understand this. He was the highest paid quarterback last year. He was making $15 million a year. Tom Brady literally is playing for half that. He was paying for $25 million. There was actually a guy that released an April Fool's joke that Tom Brady was coming out of retirement and signing with the Patriots, and he said that the deal was for $24 million instead of $25 million because it was going to be his 24th season. This dude put a lot of work into it. It was called Microphone. Love the work this guy does. I think he's based out of LA, but the April Fool's joke was very thorough, fake tweets and the whole 9 yards. So good job. You fooled me for like a good 15 seconds, and then I realized why wouldn't everybody be reporting the story if this were true? So you got to give it the go. But anyway, so So I think you got to understand that Rodgers isn't going to be able to bring in a lot of weapons when he's making the kind of money he's making. It's one or the other. A lot of those Patriot teams when Brady won the Super Bowl and he took pay cuts to keep the team together. And Rodgers, as much as I'm a fan of Rodgers, and I got no problem with Rodgers, and I got no problem with people that want to make as much money as possible. But I do have a problem that have unrealistic expectations. And if you want to be the highest paid quarterback, don't complain when you only get one ring. And if you want to take a massive pay in a year when you're clearly the best quarterback in the history of the world, then then don't be surprised when that guy gets 7 rings and they're allowed to keep a good amount of the talent around him. So this was the actual article right here that was recorded last week at the annual league meeting when Coach Matt LaFleur was asked about the lack of depth in the receiving room right now. We're going to have to add some bodies to fill that room, LaFleur said at the time. What do we got? Like 5 guys on the roster right now? Exactly, 5 guys, none with more than 14 games of experience. Christian Watson, 14 games, and he leads the way out of those players. And then Romeo Doubs played 13 games last season. Samori Toure, 11. Jeff Cotton, 1 game. And then that game was with Jacksonville. Bo Melton. Like, this is a very, very bad receiving room right now. And I think, Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb, as old as Randall Cobb was, in a way kind of saved this receiving core from being serviceable. And even at that, it was not great. So now Randall Cobb is, out the door. Allen Lazard is going to be a Jet or is a Jet. And you look at what's left in this receiving. I mean, this is easily the worst receiving group in the NFL. So I don't think that this should be surprising. And if the Packers do sign Odell Beckham, I don't think that anybody should be mad about it because Aaron Rodgers has never, ever taken the field to start a season with a receiving core as bad as the one Jordan Love is being handed off. If anything, it should be the opposite. When you're giving a young quarterback a football team and you're literally handing him the keys from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, it's like double size shoes to fill. The Packers are really counting on Jordan Love to continue this amazing quarterback life they've been living that seems to be a fantasy for a lot of other teams. And I think you got to give him as much talent as you can to take the pressure off him. Like, of course, it's going to be really difficult for him, right off the bat, just pressure-wise. And I actually think he's going to be okay. I actually think I saw enough in the Philadelphia game, and I know it's such a small sample size, but sometimes you just see something and you just know, like the way the ball comes off the hands, the way you react to pressure, the way the calmness, there's so much you can tell in one half of football. And mainly we saw him 2 years ago play the Chiefs game, the COVID year that Rodgers got suspended for a game against the Chiefs. We saw him play not great. I don't even think they scored a touchdown against a below average Chiefs defense. So when he came in on Sunday Night Football this last season against the Eagles, I mean, that's what you want to see from a rookie quarterback. It's not about him getting thrown into the fire and being great. And this has been a big, huge conversation piece for a long time is you draft a quarterback in the first round with the first 10 picks, you're drafting that player to come in and start immediately. But when you look at Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, you see that they were behind Drew Bledsoe and Brett Favre, and they took their time. And there's something to be said about taking time and kind of not being thrown into the fire. So I do think that all you're really looking for is to see visible improvement year after year. Because as long as a person is still learning and still growing, you kind of know everything that you need to know about him, in my opinion. I don't think Jordan Love is done learning and growing, and I think he's ready to be a starting quarterback. But I do think if you throw him out there week 1 with this receiving group right here, you're not going to get a great evaluation of who he is because he doesn't have playmakers. And then on top of that, you're going to shoot his confidence into the gutter because he's going to wonder not only is, the expectations of being a Packer to win most of your games, and there's going to be some grace this year, but if they're just stinking it up, the article isn't going to be that the Packers have a bad wide receiver. That's not going to get clicks. The article is going to be Jordan Love finally the death sentence to the lifelong, Packers great quarterback legacy, whatever. You get what I'm saying. So look, and then you got to restore his confidence. I say, let's just do this right from the get go. Get this guy some receivers. And I'm not saying Odell Beckham is like the guy. I'm really not. I'm just saying he's the guy that I thought of that, would make some sense. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of receivers probably taken in the draft. I think their Packers are probably waiting until after the draft to make a move towards a wide receiver. But honestly, Odell Beckham, if he doesn't sign with the Packers, I think he's going to sign with the Chiefs. It's just a matter of time. So, moving on, Jalen Carter. I thought this was kind of interesting, but it's understandable. Georgia defensive tackle Jalen Carter is visiting the Bears, but he won't visit teams without a top 10 draft pick. So, the Eagles hold picks 10 via the Saints and 30 in round 1, and they met with Jalen Carter. So that is the last team that has met with him. So Jalen Carter pretty much knows at this point, I'm not getting drafted. I'm not going to get selected past 10. I would say, however, if he does slip, and we've seen this before, Jalen Carter was undoubtedly the number 1 prospect going into the draft. And then the driving thing happened, and now it's the Alabama, what's his name? The edge rusher out of Alabama, who is the, I think it's Jordan Davis. Let me see really quick. Is it Jordan Davis? No, Jordan Davis is on the Eagles. Hold on. Let me see. Just want to get this right. Because it did switch after this this injury happened. Will Anderson. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, how far could he slip? Well, pretty far, I think, compared to being at 1. So you're going to have a quarterback taken number 1, a quarterback taken at number 2. Number 3 is going to be the Cardinals, and I would assume that that's where Will Anderson is going to go. Then the Colts are going to pick their quarterback at number 4. Then you got Texas Tech edge rusher Tyree Wilson, and then Christian Gonzalez, the best cornerback out of Oregon in the draft, in a lot of people's mind. And then this is around pick 8, where you got offensive tackle Paris Johnson to the Las Vegas Raiders. So you think about Jimmy Garoppolo and the type of style he is. The Raiders sitting there at 7 have a chance to get the best offensive tackle in the entire draft. I think they're going to do that. And then you go to pick 8 with Atlanta, and I think that could be where he goes. But they could also take Lucas Van Ness, and you get what I'm saying. So all of a sudden now you blink, and Chicago's on the clock at number 9, and then Philly's on the clock at number 10. Now, Philly could take a cornerback, especially after Darius Slane, James Bradbury would definitely be a good mentee to him. So I honestly, when I look at this, I wonder how far could he drop Jalen Carter, and I think he could potentially drop past the top 10. I don't think that's some bold take. I really don't. So I thought when I read that, I thought, hey man, like visiting with only top 10 teams. I get where your head's at, but how is there not anybody in your camp telling you like, hey man, the higher you're picked, the more money you're gonna make. So, I mean, would it kill you if these teams are willing to fly you out, put you in a hotel? Like, why? Why not? You know what I mean? And a lot of these teams will meet at the same places. You could go to New York, LA. You could, you know, I think it would be smart of him to visit maybe top 15, but cutting it at the top 10 is interesting. So Jalen Carter, unless he knows something that we don't. And look, how many times have we seen players 3 years after being drafted that are all pissed off because they told me that they weren't going to take a running back. Philip Lindsay, he said this in an interview. He was like, um, he said, I was mad at this team because they said that they weren't going to take a running back. And then they took a running back and did me. Like, they lie to you to keep their options open. Like that is the whole idea. Is like, don't piss off any of the prospects and then just pick whoever you want on draft day. But some of these college kids, man, they really believe like these recruiters when they say we're going to take you. You don't know if they're going to take you or not until you're on the clock and you get the phone call. People have been lied to in the past. They'll be lied to this year and they'll be lied to forever about who they're going to take. Good GMs keep their cards close to the chest. They don't tell people that stuff anyway. Little bit of roundup news here. So the Vikings are, where is it? It was something about Dalvin Cook. Here it is. So Dalvin Cook's shoulder is making excellent progress following an off-season surgery to repair a torn labrum. That was Tom Pelissero that reported that on Monday. Cook played the last 3 seasons while protecting the injured shoulder, and now apparently it's 100% stable and it's a lot stronger. So Dalvin Cook was a person that, I mean, when he's healthy, he's a top 3 running back, but we've seen him and we talked about the turf, and Bill actually shared a really interesting turf video that kind of breaks down why turf is causing injuries, everything you need to know about turf. But Dalvin Cook has been getting injured a lot on turf, ACLs and stuff like that. He's finally able to stay healthy, but then he tears his labrum. And Bill, what's going on? Good to have you in here. And you didn't miss much. We were just covering some Packers wide receiver stuff. And I was just talking about Jalen Carter said that he's only going to visit with the top 10 teams that have a pick. And I think he might want to round that number to top 15. I think there's a chance he does drop that far. So this is going to be your Monday news roundup. Dallas Cowboys, I'm only going to go over the really important ones or somewhat important ones. Houston Texans, Ohio State quarterback CJ Stroud will be hosted on a top 30 visit on Wednesday. So that is the day after tomorrow. CJ Stroud going to Houston. So, I mean, it depends. Houston's going to do their due diligence, but really they're going to get whatever's left over from Carolina. So Carolina is definitely going to be the team that's going to have first dibs on whatever quarterback that they want to select. But I think there's a good chance that CJ Stroud is available, so I understand that. The Indianapolis Colts are going to have visits from CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, and they're working out for the Colts today in Southern California. So that's what I was saying about Jalen Carter. It's not like you have to fly to Seattle and fly to Baltimore and fly to, Green Bay. Like, look at this. The Colts are meeting with CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, not in Indianapolis. They're meeting in Southern California. So, like, in my opinion, I mean, this stuff is organized so that the teams can meet with several players at a time, or a player can meet with several teams. So I don't think it would take a lot of extra work. And Jalen Carter showing up a little overweight with everything going on, it's kind of important at this point that he shows that football is very important to him, and doing the bare minimum, in my opinion, he's just not in a position to do that. He should be going to every meeting, any literally anything that he can go to attend, to just show face and get people to start seeing him around the facilities and seeing him help out. And like you saw CJ Stroud when he had his pro day, he was cheering on his teammates even though he was throwing like a couple hours later. Like, that's what Jalen Carter needs to be doing. Like, this is the time for you to make these teams fall in love with you, or you'll slip to 15 or 20. I'm telling you, people will take a hardworking football player that loves the game more than extreme talent. You know who had crazy talent? Jadeveon Clowney. And he's a good player, but he never turned out to be, this. He didn't turn out to be like what's his name out of LA. I'm drawing a blank right now. The best defensive player maybe in the history of football. Oh my God. The things I draw blanks on. Aaron Donald. Jeez. He didn't turn out to be an Aaron Donald or anything like that. Bill in the chat saying a lot of guys are working out in SoCal now. It seems good point. If you aren't present, it's easy to be overlooked. Yeah. And it's just there's always going to be people that are going to, be hating on you when you have the kind of stuff that when you show up overweight, you're slower, you have this legal stuff going on. It's like, people, what kind of vibe are you giving off? Are you the kind of person that people see and they're like, that guy is somebody that we could build the team around? Like Aiden Hutchinson, when he was when you saw in Hard Knocks, he was like, I'm not a loser. I haven't lost anywhere that I've gone, and we're not going to lose here. Like, period. I'm a winner, and my job is to turn this team into a winning franchise. Like, that's what you're looking for in a first overall pick. So I understand Jalen Carter probably a little bummed that, he's not a surefire number one pick anymore. But it's not the time to be salty, man. You got to lick your wounds, put a smile on your face. You're going to be paid millions of dollars to play a football game. Go be happy about it. The Denver Broncos signed center Kyle Fuller. When I saw that they signed Kyle Fuller, I thought of Vic Fangio's Chicago's cornerback. And I was like, Kyle Fuller? Center with the same name. I don't know who this guy is, but he's a Bronco, so I'm going to report it. I can't eat these mini Starbursts on camera. They are way too much. Really good, though. Really good. Okay. Kentucky quarterback Will Levis? Will Levis is being hosted on a top 30 visit at the team facility for the Las Vegas Raiders. Las Vegas currently holds the number 7 overall pick. And this is interesting. So a lot of people haven't really linked the Raiders to a quarterback because of the Jimmy Garoppolo signing. But let me ask you this. Do you think that the Raiders signing Jimmy Garoppolo means that they're not interested in a quarterback? I don't know why I didn't think of this, but I don't think that they're locked onto Jimmy Garoppolo for the next 10 years. And I think if you're looking at this logically, Jimmy Garoppolo is not a great quarterback, but he's better than a bad quarterback, and he's better than mediocre. He's somewhere between mediocre and a little bit above average. He wins, right? One thing you can say about Jimmy Garoppolo is that he wins football games, which means the Raiders aren't going to be picking in the top 10 next year, which means if they're going to try to get a quarterback for the future and not wait until the end of Jimmy Garoppolo's career when it's a little too late, and they have to go through a lot of bad seasons, now would be the draft to do it. Draft Will Levis and sit him behind Jimmy Garoppolo for 4 years. 4 freaking years, 3 years, whatever. He'll definitely get playing time because Jimmy Garoppolo won't be able to stay healthy. But this makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know if you guys agree with that. Case in point, Sterling Shepard with the Giants. Giants Twitter was like, it's time to move on. But everyone loves him, and he's always there, even when he's injured. We signed to another year because of that. Dedication. He's a locker room guy. We call those morale. He's a morale booster, just having him around. He's good vibes. The owner of the team wants him to only be a Giant and is preparing a post-retirement job with the Giants for him, all because he's present. LOL about the Bears and what you said makes sense. Yeah, man, that goes such a long way. Such a long way. There's a guy, do you know who the original TB is for the Patriots? Not Tom Brady. There was an OG TB, somebody that you may or may not know. And I'm gonna give you a second to put it in. So the hotel I was staying at had NFL Network, and I was able to watch NFL Network. I just literally had it running all the time. I mean, 24/7, I had it running. Teddy Bruschi, that's a great guess. That is that is actually a really good guess. That was one of the names that was thrown out there. But this is a receiver. That's a pretty good hint. It's a receiver. I know Rusty would know. Rusty's a diehard Patriots fan. It's Troy Brown. Troy Brown is a guy that you may not have heard of. He isn't a Hall of Famer, but he was the heart and soul of the Patriots. I watched this whole documentary on him. He just put his head down and he worked. He did punt returns. He was a receiver, obviously. He went in and played cornerback, or maybe it was safety. He was a Patriot from 1993 to 2007. He had 14 years with the Patriots. And the reason I learned about who he was because NFL Network had they do top 10 home field advantage, top 10, and this was top 10 New England players of all time. And Troy Brown was number 9. Number 10 was Adam Vinatieri. And number 9 was Troy Brown. But yeah, I just, you hear like the way they talked about him and just it's like this. It's exactly like what you're saying here about Sterling Shepard. You can have, what did they say? You can lose a game, but you can't lose a locker room. So any time you get an opportunity to keep guys around that are going to hold that locker room together when a guy drops a pass, what do you call it? A unnecessary roughness in the AFC Championship game, sends you home. Those are the guys that you're going to need to keep. You're going to need to keep the players that keep it tight. So Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker, who we haven't talked a ton about, but he's definitely in his own right a good quarterback in this draft. I mean, he had Tennessee beating Alabama this year, and I don't know if you guys saw the videos of that, of them rushing the field and taking the goalpost. It was a beautiful thing to watch, but he is coming off a clean ACL tear, and that might be why we're not hearing, about him a ton. But New Orleans holds the 29th overall pick in the 2023 draft, and he's going to be visiting with the Saints on Tuesday, so tomorrow. So the Saints are getting ready to meet with a quarterback. And I mean, one thing I've learned from following the news this closely with the podcast me and Rick have going on is that you really do have like front offices leaving no stone unturned. It's like they just signed Derek Carr and they're meeting with a quarterback that is going to be taken in the first round. And I find that kind of interesting a little bit. I mean, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you if you were Derek Carr? What are they doing meeting with a quarterback? Like they have me. Am I only here for 3 years? Are we already thinking about the transition? Because I feel like I'm in the peak of my career. I don't want to be in the transition. I don't want to have a midlife crisis right now. I can still play ball. And I don't think all of these meetings are as serious as we think. I think it's just one thing I learned about Sean Payton is that Mickey Loomis would bring in as many players as he can, even players that he wasn't going to draft, just so he could learn about them so that when he played them, he felt like he had an advantage on them. So they bring in Hendon Hooker. They learn what he likes, what he doesn't like. And then they don't draft him. And guess what? When they play the team that drafted Hooker, they know what Hooker likes. They know what Hooker doesn't like. It's pretty genius, honestly. New York Jets linebacker Deion Jones is being hosted on a free agent visit today. Deion Jones. So, Bill, you might have a linebacker being signed pretty soon. He is a linebacker for the Cleveland Browns last season. He had an interception. Trying to see, is there any highlights about him? Deion Jones, Jadeveon Clowney. We were just talking about him. Oh, yeah, Jadeveon Clowney tipped the ball that was thrown by Cincinnati quarterback Joe Burrow that got intercepted by linebacker Deion Jones. So Deion Jones had a pick. Can't misplay. Browns deny Najee Harris goal line. And that was also Deion Jones. He seems like a pretty solid middle linebacker. He's 222 pounds, 6'1". He went to LSU. He's only been in the league for 7 years. We're the same age. So I'm going to say he's not old. 28 years old. Dion Lewis. When was he drafted? He was a 5th round selection in 2011. So I would say the average 5th rounder is not in the league after 8 years. So there's a reason that he's still in the league. And it's not his name or hype. It's probably because he's a really good plug and play guy. Good rotational guy. So we'll see what happens with that, Bill. But yeah, I just wanted you to know that since Giants and all. And then Al Woods, defensive tackles, coming in to meet with the Jets. And Katavius Street, defensive tackle, was signed to the Philadelphia Eagles. He was last a Saint. He's 6'2", 287 pounds. He's only 26, 4 years of experience out of NC State. And now a Philadelphia Eagle. So that was the news roundup that has happened today, the start of a brand new week. Brock Purdy looks like he has a robotic arm after elbow surgery. Matthew Stafford held the title of the most talked about elbow last offseason. And the 2023 King of the Elbow will undoubtedly be the Brock Purdy story. Bill saying, yeah, that info just dropped. Okereke and him together would be a good pair of linebackers. Be right back. Dinner's ready. Sounds good. Last week, Kyle Shanahan's response to the question of when Purdy might be ready to be playing boiled down to check back with us in June. So the protocol is that you start throwing at 3 months, but it depends on how your therapy and your range of motion and everything goes in that point. Obviously, range of motion is everything when it comes to physical therapy and checking boxes when it comes to being cleared for things and of that nature. So Purdy said via the Mercury News that there's definitely some boxes I have to check off. Oh, I literally didn't even read this second sentence, and that's exactly what I was just saying. So yeah, boxes need to be checked. Won't know anything really until June. When you first get in after surgery, you're in at 90 degrees. From there, you can start opening it up to help with your range of motion. So he's wearing a large elbow brace designed to allow movement to ensure his arm retains mobility post-surgery. So whereas a layperson would typically be in a cast, the young QB noted that the brace makes it appear he has a robotic arm. So he's moving around like this. And that's got to be freaking annoying. And it's his right arm too. So hopefully his girlfriend is a very giving woman, if you catch my drift. But yeah, he says out in public, it looks like I have a robotic arm. The Niners brass openly admitted, and the former 7th round has a leg up on the starting gig over Lance, which we talked about. Brock Purdy should definitely 100% be the favorite. I just don't know how. Like, Brock Purdy has won every single game that he hasn't broken his elbow in. Just leave it right there. Okay? Don't overthink it. They could get back to the NFC Championship and win the Super Bowl. I really believe that. That team is loaded, and they take a lot of swings, and a lot of those work out for the 49ers. And that's why you shouldn't be mad about the Trey Lance thing. Like, it's easy to be like, do you feel stupid about moving up to draft Trey Lance? It's like, no. We take a lot of big swings as a franchise, and you know what? Sometimes they don't work. And sometimes a 7th round pick, is going to be somehow the guy and not the guy that was drafted 2nd or 3rd. So, I think you just have to be okay with, missing. If you're going to knock, a lot of hits out of the park, you're going to strike out a couple times too. It says right here, Packers so this was a mock draft that was done by Cynthia Freeland in 2023. Bill says, back, Purdy with the brace, yep. And then Bill said, love Brock Purdy. I'm pulling for him to make a full recovery and go back to killing it. Me too. I was actually, I was wearing my Brock Purdy shirt the other day. I want to Brock all night and Purdy all day. And I'm not a 49ers fan, and I'm not a 49ers fan either. I'm probably less of a 49ers fan than you, because you're in the NFC, I'm in the AFC, so you can't cheer for the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl while I can, even though I would probably cheer, for the Packers over the 49ers. But point being, I'm in the AFC and you're in the NFC, so I could pretty much, and plus, after what happened with the Seahawks, and all the stuff they talk about Russell Wilson, the 49ers are a divisional rival to the Seahawks. So I'm always cheering for the 49ers to just beat the living crap out of the Seahawks. And I'm really proud of that built up anger that I have. So anyway, in that mock draft that Cynthia did, she had the first team taking a wide receiver at number 15, and that's the Packers taking Jackson Smith out of Ohio State. So this is what she said. My model loves reliable route runners who are above a specific speed threshold that can travel 10 yards in a 2.5 seconds or 2.1 seconds when not being pressed during a game. And Smith is the latest Buckeye to fit this model. Just watch the 2021 tape. Alabama also has a knack for churning out these kinds of receivers. I can hear you already, but the Packers don't draft receivers in the first round. Well, maybe they should. And this is kind of almost like I was foreshadowing earlier, but the Packers are going to draft a wide receiver because if they don't, Jordan Love's confidence will be shot and they won't actually be able to accurately evaluate that guy. So the Packers, by moving on from Aaron Rodgers, have put themselves in a situation where they have to draft a receiver, and they will. I am very, very sure about that. Because, like, even if Aaron Rodgers was still a Packer, they would never send Rodgers to the field with this receiving core. So they're not going to do it with Brock Purdy either. Sends Bills in here. I'll tell you who they have the Giants picking at 25. Zay Flowers. Corner or wide receiver? Wide receiver or corner? That's what these past few weeks and past few picks. Say that 10 times. Past few picks have all been about. I guess it's not that hard. I'm sticking with Flowers as the Giants picks. The receivers just edging out the remaining corners. So, Boston College receiver Zay Flowers to the New York Giants. Don't know how you feel about that. Bill saying 1984 divisional round, 49ers beat us, and I still carry it with me. And that's how I feel about the 2013 Super Bowl. 43-8. I will always hate the Seahawks. And when Russ came to Denver, I was like, oh, this could be poetic justice. And then Nathaniel Hackett shit the bed. And so did Russell Wilson. But Sean Payton's going to fix everything. That's what's helping me sleep at night, at least for right now. We got Rick, who will probably end up watching this later. He's a Bears fan, so I'll go ahead and hit his team right here. So the Bears obviously moved back to the 9th pick, and they got them picking an offensive tackle, Peter Skoronski. And I don't know who it was we were talking about. Don't pick an offensive line in the first round. It's like, that is so dumb. Yes, pick an offensive line in the first round. Penei Sewell is one of the best offensive linemen in the league, and he was picked, 2 years ago? 3 years ago? Tops? I think it was 2 years ago. And look at how helpful that has been for the Lions offense. I mean, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, me and Rick should hate the number 55. That should be literally, if the Bears are feeling tempted, it's kind of like when you have to pay a bill, but there's something fancy and you know that you could afford to push the bill to the 15th and you just buy that nice thing. The Bears need to just put a bunch of 55s all in their draft room so they don't get tempted to get anything fancy. They need to pay their bill. And remember that Justin Fields was sacked 55 times last season, which was tied for the most with Russell Wilson. They don't have the luxury to get a fancy toy until they can protect their quarterback. You got the fancy car, but now we got to get some insurance and keep him healthy. So, plus, if you want Justin Fields to have a little bit better pocket awareness, which is something he struggled with last season, maybe if he didn't feel like he had only 2 to 3 seconds to make a decision before he has to run, he could develop in that area. It's not realistic to develop your pocket awareness when you're running every single down. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, I like this mock right here. The Bears going offensive tackle makes a lot of sense to me. And then the Broncos obviously don't have a pick. Otherwise, I would go over a Broncos pick, and that kind of sucks. I'm not gonna lie. 2 years in a row without a first round pick. Um, but whatever. We had a first round pick. We traded Bradley Chubb for Sean Payton, and that's a deal I would do every single day over and over again. I will never regret that decision. Sean Payton will make a bigger difference to the Broncos than Bradley Chubb would have. The Broncos won what 5 games, 4 games, 5 games last season, and the sports books just released their over-unders for win totals for all 32 teams, and Denver's at 8.5. So that shows you a team without a first-round pick went up to 8.5 wins for an over-under, and that's the Sean Payton effect. And it's a pretty big, pretty big deal. There's a lot of players that are apparently signing, free agent signing, and they're saying it's because they want to be a part of what Sean Payton's doing. He's putting out a car in front of where the players train with no mirrors, no rear view mirrors, no interior mirrors. And the message is we're not looking backwards. We're only looking forward. Calais Campbell believes that the Falcons are going to surprise a lot of people this year. His decision to move south came pretty surprising, I think, for a lot of us. But the veteran thinks that he's just ahead of the curve. He joins Atlanta on a 1-year deal, and he feels pretty good. I mean, everybody pretty much would say these types of things. You're going to a new team, you want to bring a good vibe. But this is what he said. I really like the vision of the team. Coach Campbell said of Coach Arthur Smith, I really thought he had a great game plan for where the team was right now and where it's going. I really feel like it's going to surprise a lot of people this year. This team's going to be very competitive. Tough team that will win a lot of ball games. Now, I'm just going to be real. These are just things that players that sign to a new team says. And do I think Atlanta's going to win a lot of football games? No, I don't. I don't think they're going to win a lot of football games. And they don't have their quarterback situation figured out. And then where is the see what the mock draft right now has for Atlanta. Atlanta picking 19th. Or no, round 1, pick 8. So it says that they're going to pick an edge rusher, Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa, right? So you could say, no, they got to pick a quarterback. What are you talking about? But look, this mock draft, I don't know. You could probably throw it away a little bit because it says Anthony Richardson's going number 1 overall. I don't see that happening. I would go CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, and then Will Levis. So Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, and CJ Stroud will all be off the board by the time we get to the 5th, which means as far as quarterbacks are concerned, Will Levis will be the only quarterback available. So what do you do if you're Atlanta? Do you take a chance on Will Levis, or do you get the best player available and a guy that's for sure going to be really good, and then you unofficially tank, and then next season when you're drafting pretty high, like this is the thing. The fact that Atlanta hasn't moved up in the draft and they haven't gone after any of the receivers, sure, they might have had players come in for a visit, but Atlanta has not been aggressive about getting a quarterback. And the reason is because they got to figure it out. Okay. New Orleans has got Derek Carr. They're going to be good. Carolina is going to get whatever quarterback they want, but they're going to get whoever they think is the best. And automatically they're going to be in a better quarterback scenario than Atlanta. And Tampa Bay has Baker Mayfield, which for right now, he's on a prove-it deal, but they're not looking to get a tanking year out of Baker Mayfield. They're not, which means Atlanta will finish last, most likely in their division. They'll run the football, but they're going to be subpar, and they're going to be the worst team in their division. And the division last year was a lot weaker, and that's why Atlanta's picking at 8. This year, the division's going to be better with the adding Derek Carr and the number 1 overall quarterback, which means Atlanta's not going to pick at 8. They're going to pick at 1, 2, or 3, which means in a quarterback-heavy draft next year, Atlanta's looking to draft USC's quarterback. You know, they're looking to address their quarterback situation next year. I would be surprised if at number 8, Will Levis is picked. I really would. I would be surprised on that, because if he goes out there and is a mediocre quarterback and you are going to, let's say, pick in the top 4 next year, they're going to get a quarterback anyway. And you don't want to have to do what the Cardinals did when they drafted, what's his name? And then the next year drafted Kyler Murray with the first overall pick. You don't want to do that. So I say the Falcons are probably going to go ahead and get the best edge rusher here with their 8th pick. They're going to get the best player available, and it's not going to be a quarterback. And that's why I feel like Calais Campbell's comments about Atlanta's going to win a lot of games. We're going to be a tough team that wins a lot of ball games. I'll take things that players that sign with new teams for 500. And that's pretty much how I feel about that one. Broncos wide receiver Tim Patrick, ACL is cleared to do everything. Bill said I had Flowers going at 25 and Whippler as a center next round. We can find a corner. Somewhere. Okay. I like that you're doing your own little mock drafts. You know, that's pretty cool. I love doing that stuff. So Sean Payton was discussing the Broncos wide receiver, and he said at this point, he's clear to do everything. He's just going to do his repetition and get himself ready to play in the game. So, obviously, Tim Patrick, 2 years ago, Broncos are in a bye week, and they signed Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton to, a 3-4 year extension for both of them. And then in the offseason, last year, working out with Russ in the official team offseason, not at Russ's house or anything. At the Broncos facility, Tim Patrick tried to do a juke and tore his ACL. Really sad day at practice. It was a sad week, really. And he missed the entire season. So this is good news to hear that a year later, he's totally back and ready to help, because the Denver Broncos really missed him. I think with Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, and Courtland Sutton and Sean Payton, I think we're in good hands. And we saw a lot of promise from Greg Dulcich. I think the Broncos could be really good next year, but it just depends on who Russell Wilson is. We've never seen any quarterback just completely deplete the way he did, ever. So I got to believe that he's going to be better than he was last year, but how much better is to be seen. And unfortunately, that's kind of everything. So it's hard to even have an opinion on this team. Bill says, doing it right now on Pro Football Network. Nice. So, yeah, so those are pretty much the big stories. I hit the Brock Purdy, Dalvin Cook, Jalen Carter, Calais Campbell, Tim Patrick, LaFleur, the wide receiver room, the mock draft, Brock Purdy's a robot, free agent signings, and that has been our Monday. So Only Football with Kyle is going to be on Wednesday. We're going to have our trivia on Thursday. And now that I'm back here, be ready to see shorts being back uploaded with any kind of breaking news. We're getting really close to the draft here. So the draft was on the 23rd. Now it's being moved to the 30th, I believe. So that means we're 27 days away from the draft. Draft. I believe it's the 30th. It is on April 29th. Okay, so we're 26 days, about 25 days away from the draft. We're going to have some really awesome episodes. We're going to be going live at the actual draft, and we're going to have my buddy on that is diehard college all the way, giving us breakdowns of players because he knows college better than I do. Like, if he wants someone to talk NFL, I'll jump on his thing. But when it comes to college, I don't really know a lot about these guys until they're in the league for, usually after their first year, I know most of them. But out of college, I'm just like most people. I'm YouTubing them as they get drafted, like watching their highlights. And I'll even see in the comments, how many are you here because he just got drafted? And it's yep, that's me. So no shame, but we are going to be doing some draft stuff. Bill said I just looked at Hooker at 64. I just took Hooker at 64. LO, I can't believe he dropped. DJ gets a new backup. Ooh, you better hope DJ doesn't have a game with 2 or 3 interceptions because Daniel Jones might not know the difference whether they're calling him a derogatory name or they're asking for the backup to come into the game. But it'll probably be them cheering for the backup. I think with Daniel Jones' situation right now, I don't even think you should throw a quarterback of that caliber in there. I think Daniel Jones needs a backup like Colt McCoy, somebody super old that's probably going to go into coaching that has no intentions to be the star of the team, and somebody that he can just pick his brain and he can be behind the scenes. You don't want to get a young, aggressive rookie, in there. And you can make the argument, yeah, no, it's good. It's going to, bring the competition out. I don't think it's good. That's just my opinion. It's just one man's opinion. I think competitions are good when you have like Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, but you guys just paid Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones had a good playoff game. Like, if you want this to work, I say put all your eggs in one basket. Sell out. You're giving him $40 million a year. You might as well, I don't think they'll draft a quarterback. I think there's other positions that they should address. Oh man, that coffee's so good. But yeah, so that is our show for today. Thank you guys for joining us. It feels good to be back in the studio. And honestly, it doesn't seem like maybe that different to you guys, but it just feels so much better to be back in this room. I just feel free and at home, and I'm excited to get back into the routine, uploading shorts, getting all that stuff for you guys. Bill said, "Oh, I know they aren't bad." They aren't, but I just had to for funsies. Yeah, it's like when you're doing a Madden draft, you got to take. Yeah, you always take the fun players. Nobody's drafting the O lineman in Madden. It's like you always want to get the fun, flashy guys, and then turn them into wide receivers. But yeah, so that is our episode. We will have Rick back very shortly, but he got called into work. Follow me on Twitter at FTBLONLYPODCAST, and my colleague, my partner in crime, my everything, and now Rick. You can follow him at Twitter at @andnowrick. And definitely follow Star 6 Media. NBA is going into the playoffs. Check out all of our other channels. We got Sports Drip, 3 Up, 3 Down, Big Leagues, Chicago, Slot Shot, and EA Sports, EAP. All of our channels. Check them all out. Everybody's putting in a lot of work to bring you guys a quality product that you guys will enjoy and love. So definitely check out the other shows if you have interest in other sports. And if you guys have any requests for trivia coming up on Thursday, feel free to comment on this video once it's uploaded. Go ahead and throw it in the comments and say, I want trivia to be about coaches with the worst mustaches. I don't care. It could be anything, but just throw it in the comments so I can have a theme. I would appreciate it if you guys gave at least a 24-hour heads up, because I got to find these questions, and depending on how interesting and unique the trivia is, it may take some research. So a little bit of a heads up would be great. But yeah, that's all I got. So thank you guys for joining. And if you subscribe and ring the bell for notifications, next time we go live, you guys will definitely know about it, and we would love to have you in here. So until next time, see ya!